All right, it says it's live on my end.
Live.
I did not advertise this like hardly at all. I don't know if anyone's gonna join. I mentioned it on Instagram.
Is it because you're nervous that people are gonna be mad at your feelings about the book?
No, not so much that. It's just I had a live show. Oh yay, hello! There is somebody with the channel Bookborn yesterday, and then I was like announcing a giveaway winner, and I was like, oh, I don't want to mention the Legendborn live show too. It's too many things, and I just didn't.
Overwhelming people. Yeah.
There's some people here. Hello, people that are here.
Hello.
The Legendborn live show.
Woo!
Yay. I know I don't have the sleeve on because I've been reading without the sleeve. So,
Yes.
But
it's very beautiful.
It's such a pretty cover. The cover artist, Hillary. I don't remember her. Let me look it up. But her Instagram is great. Her art is great. So everybody should follow that cover artist for sure. Let me see, Hillary.
Yeah, and as I was reading, I was picturing the magic exactly like the cover described it. So it was like perfectly representative of what was inside.
Hi, everybody.
Such a
it is indeed a super gorgeous cover. And then that's okay. It's the one that they were just showing. Let's see. It's Hillary D. Wilson art is the.
Oh, I think I follow her. Yeah.
I may have sent her to you before. The cover artist. But anyway, sorry, I was trying to. I don't know if the dinging is gonna stop.
No worries.
I don't know how to get it to not make noise. Oh my gosh. It's Joshana. Hold on. Let me get. Is this really?
There's Nigel's joining us.
Wow.
How was the birthday?
It was so great. It was the highlight
with those like puppy treats.
And I made him a cake, and it was just I had a blast just watching him. Like
so precious. I love that.
My mom was like, "You're ridiculous." Like, well, I mean, I don't have anything else to do.
Yeah.
Why not throw a puppy party?
Puppy parties. We got Luna, like a Christmas present, which was just a new toy. Sorry, goodness.
Okay.
You're so popular.
Here. Sorry. But there's like moving things going on with Joshana and other people we know. And it's all happening all at once. So
moving is the worst.
But so we'll start non-spoiler. This is very chill in case anybody couldn't tell. It's not like a formal. This is what happens with live shows. But we're gonna start non-spoiler. How everybody felt about the book.
Okay.
Who wants to go first?
I mean, I could go first because I think I was the most positive on it of the three of us. I ended up enjoying this quite a bit. I had quite a lot of issues with some of the plot pieces that were in place and the magic system. And we'll talk a little bit more about it when we go into spoilers, like specifically what I mean by that. But overall, like that didn't necessarily hinder my overall enjoyment. I gave this like a very good on my rating because I just had a good time reading it. But I recognize that it definitely has some things that could be improved upon. And I'm anxious to see where the sequel goes with it. I'll definitely be picking up the sequel.
For sure. Do you know if this is a duology or supposed to be a trilogy?
I don't know.
I don't know.
I'm interested. But so I liked it. I don't know if my expectation was too high because every single person that I know that I've seen has raved about this book. And so they were up there and I just was like, it was good. But I rated it about 3 I feel bad. But I was like, is it me or is it the book? There was just something I didn't connect with. Like, I was like, this isn't terrible, but I'm not loving it.
I might have the most not positive feeling. I too had heard everybody love it, and I think we all like to believe that the hype doesn't get to us, but I think it's only honest to say that it probably does. Sorry, Luna's grumbling in the background, but but I mean, I was checking last night. I think the rating is about 4.5 or so. There were so many. So like the writing itself, I liked, and I thought there were so many moments that were really well written, but the story as a whole and the way it was pieced together, that didn't work for me really, which is, I would absolutely read something else that she wrote in the future. And I actually think if she had written, not that you can't write powerful things within fantasy, but if this had just kind of been a more contemporary novel exploring grief and trauma, and maybe even was more like magical realism, I think it could have been really good, which is obviously a totally different book, right? It wouldn't be this book. But my feelings toward this are similar to the book Girls of Paper and Fire, where I really appreciated how much care the author put into the heavier topics. But as a whole, there was something about the juxtaposition between those things and then these fantasy elements that, I don't know, I wanted to dive deeper either into what she was going through, our main character, or the fantasy elements. I mean, it wasn't a short book, right? It was pretty long, and the page count probably
500.
Yeah, it was chunky for a YA fantasy.
Small words.
Yes, as we said in our chat, the words are kind of small, not like most YA novels. Plus, it's a tall hardback too.
Yeah.
But so it's not a short book, but it felt like the magic was, okay, here's an explanation. Got it. Okay, let's move on. Here's more like something else with magic. Oh, and by the way, here's another thing. And also, let's now have a chapter where she's dealing with her trauma. And then now let's talk about magic again. And then also boys and love triangles. And I was like, there's so many things. There's so many things in this. So, wow, this is so positive. But I'm like, it's not though. So far, I've been like, oh shoot, my phone is moving. I agree with it. It didn't. So okay, some parts were super, almost stereotypically YA, and then other things were. It's not even that they didn't feel YA to me. It's that they just felt like they were dealing with very dark, heavy things. Yeah. And so it's not that I disagree with this necessarily, because I just started by saying like, yeah, but I think sometimes the way that young adult approaches heavier topics is less forward about them. Mm-hmm. And this one I thought tackled them pretty head on. So I think that that's what is unexpected. You see it sometimes, you see trauma, you see references to real world things, but you don't necessarily see them as open and honest as they were in this book. So I appreciated that a lot. And there were some chapters that I was like, that was really powerful. But then also chick accepts magic like instantly. And I'm like, how are you still going to your classes? I don't So that was like my vague feelings.
And that was one thing that Jay, I agree with. I found that this is one where if I did another like YA fantasy for older readers video, I would include this one, because I do think you can get quite a lot out of this, even being outside of the target audience for typical like YA. Like this one, I've been picking up YA that's felt very like young in tone and themes, and this one just felt more mature. And again, I think, in some places it felt way more mature. And then in some places, we get the love triangle, and we'll talk about that love triangle because I have thoughts. Yes, like it's still a YA. I think it's properly categorized as YA, but I can definitely see older readers really enjoying this one and finding it more mature.
I just want to say, She does, though, at the beginning of the book, still go. Eventually, I mean, the book
fade off, which
yeah,
I want more. I always want more of the school, and then that usually starts out them going to class, and then they kind of forget about it, and at the end they're like, "Oh my god, finals!" Like,
yes, exactly. Because there's a part in the book where she's kind of questioning her decisions, and then she starts to dive really back into her school to the point where then she's arguing with her friend at one point. Because her friend's like, well, I'm worried about you. And she's like, well, first you were worried I wasn't caring enough. And now you are worried I care too much. I'm like trying to study. But it's more of just I don't want to get into spoilers just yet. I want to make sure that everybody has a chance to chat about the non-spoiler stuff initially. But the introduction of the magic is very swift. And we talked about this when we were chatting, obviously outside of this. But I think it's really hard to hit that balance of hurry up and figure it out already. And how did you just accept that already, that magic exists? Mm-hmm. It's hard to find that right balance because you don't want them to take forever because then it's annoying. And then you don't want them to do it too fast because then it feels unrealistic. So I think this one, that beginning for me, it's accepted very quick. And I would be freaking out. I'd be freaking out. I mean, I don't know. I wish, and I know I kind of vocalized this to you all, but for everybody here in the chat, I kind of almost wish that there had been some knowledge that magic existed already to some degree, or like it was just a fantastical world or something, because I thought it could have been cool if like everybody kind of knew, but it wasn't what you thought it was. And then she finds out more about it. So that way, it's more organic to her kind of just going with the flow with it. I'm not saying she literally is just like, okay, cool. Like, let's move on then. Let's learn the next step. But I definitely think that it was it just went very quickly. So also, hold on. I have to stop for a second. You won the Store My Archive sweatshirt giveaway. I don't know. It was in my community tab, so you can email me. I haven't checked my emails this morning. Maybe you did, but so just so you know, you would. I think we can
agree with you.
Yeah, we can. Okay, cool. I'll check my email. I wasn't sure. I was checking yesterday. I was like, I don't know if they saw. But addressing this, I'll let you guys mention your thoughts, and anybody in the chat, spoiler free so far. Thoughts on the magic.
Yeah, because it's Arthur. God, I can never say it. Arthurian magic, like King Arthur, which I honestly don't know that much about. Like, I haven't dug too much into the legend or read that many adaptations, so I can't speak on how well it was written or what she made up. But it was just so confusing. I'm glad I did have the physical copy because they have like a thing in the back where I was like, because there's just so many terms. It was like there's a sun and a Legendborn and a mage, and I was like, there was just a lot, and that's where I felt was more mature too. Like she was really trying to write a really complex magic system. Yeah. But I was just like, because at moments when she would explain it was kind of info dumpy, so I'd be like, oh my god, and there's more, and there's more, and I was like, whew, I need to take notes.
Look who's here! Yay! Hello. Just so for people that haven't read it, what Jess was just referencing, here's all of the in the back, like the different things with the magic, the terms and everything. So there's a lot. And I mean, I felt like with context, I always knew, I feel like what they were referencing. But then if you ask me like which one does what, I'd be like, I don't know. It's kind of like in Mistborn, how when you're reading, that like pewter is the one that makes them really strong, but it's not like if somebody asked you like quiz time, pop quiz, list all the metals and all the powers, and you'd be like, I don't know. That's how I felt about this a little bit too.
I actually really, really liked, so there are multiple magic systems, and I don't want to say too much about one of them because I think that could get into spoiler territory a little bit. But the first magic system that we're introduced to, with just the whole idea that she took with King Arthur and that legend and introducing it to these new characters, I really enjoy that, like, oh, what can I say that's not spoiler? I love the idea behind that magic system, like the concept of it is so cool to me. And I was like, oh, I'm into this. This is really fun. And especially because I like Jess, I don't know too much about the original Arthurian legend. So it was really fun to kind of learn a little bit more about it through this story. But I really like the concept, but I agree that how it was introduced, the info dump didn't bother me too much, but I wish we had taken more time to explore how when someone's can I say this with being spoiler free? When someone's awakened, what that does to them. Like, I wish we had explored that a little bit more.
There's so much thought and so many details put into this magic system.
Yes.
And it almost felt like we could have taken part of it, and this first book could have been not even referencing the other magic, but just within the King Arthur stuff. It felt like we could have zeroed in on some and kind of made that almost the focus of, I just felt like we always, okay, I'll put it this way. So the main character, the info dumps are info dumps, I think for sure, but they kind of make sense based off of where the character is at in their knowledge of the magic. So they need things explained to them. So I didn't mind the presentation so much, but it never felt like the character had time to really take all of that in and digest it and then know. Well, and then the reader to know, because it felt like as soon as you got one aspect of the magic, you were then being explained another aspect. But then plot twist, turns out some things aren't what you think, or turns out this character was keeping a secret. And then you're like, oh, wait, all right, I guess I'll go with this.
But it seemed like she picked it up like really quickly, and I was like, wait, how do you understand who's a page and somebody and who's bonded to this person and under there? So like, it was like presented to her in these where I would have been like, hold on, slow down, I need to take out. But she would just, absorb it, and then the next day, and then we get more, and I was like, oh my God, I think she, to me, tried to do too much in this book. They're just like you were saying earlier, like you wish it was either focus on the fantasy or on the grief and that. So she was trying to do that, and then multiple magic systems. So it was just a lot.
It's a lot. And I think that our character, I was trying to take apart the timeline of events, and the timeline events, a huge bulk of the book takes place in about a week. So there's like stuff that happens at the beginning that you're like, magic. And then the next day she's like, what the heck? And then she's like, dealing with the repercussions of what had happened on, I think it was Sunday night or something. And then Monday she's dealing with things that happened. And then Tuesday, it's like, I'm like learning way more about everything. Wednesday's like, I'm in love. Thursday's like, hey, danger is here. And it just like, that was kind of a week. And then there was a few days where it's like, time to train. And then that was like a little montage. And then things like kind of went. But when you think about the timeline, I think that highlights a little bit of my, I don't want to say frustrations. I'm not angry at the book, but my disconnect a little is that I have to believe that the characters are feeling all these feelings that are spoilery, so I can't say, but the certain things that they are experiencing and they're supposedly feeling all at once in a week. I don't know, a week and a half to 2 weeks, I think was the bulk of the book. So that's always tough for me. I need them to have time so that I almost can process also. I don't know if that makes any sense. It's like in a movie when you see the characters like fall in love and you're like, isn't this like all within a weekend? Like an action adventure movie, they're finally kissing in the big scene and you're like, you guys just met yesterday. I get that adrenaline and all of that up and we're in danger, and that maybe makes things even more intense, but also you just met them. That's how I felt about kind of everything in this book.
Did you guys I know, Jess, when we were chatting while reading it, you weren't loving like the main character. Did you end up liking her by the end. I actually quite liked Brie.
I like her. I was surprised just because you were like, oh.
I don't know, something, and I think I'm going to admit that it's me, and because I've taken a step back in general from young adult fantasy, and I hate being that person to be like, oh, they were making dumb decisions. Like, yeah, she's 16. And so I know a lot of my mind, I was like, wait, you got to remember she's 16. So like by the end did like her more with certain decisions, but of course, she's 16, so she's going to be stubborn, especially in the beginning, very like, I'm not going to listen, especially in the beginning when she was really new to this information and she's like in danger and people are like, could you leave please and get yourself out of, she's like, no, I'm going to stay right here. And I'm like, why are you doing that? But she did grow on me towards the end, but I still I don't know. I don't hate her either. It was my whole thing with the book. I just didn't have a strong connection to much besides like the other magic system. Like I was really excited about that one. And then stuff.
Yeah.
Things.
Yeah. Like I felt like we really focused in on like a couple of characters, and then there were a ton of side characters in this book, like a huge cast of characters. But I didn't care about any of them except for like 2. So I will say like some of like the characters that we focused on, I really enjoyed. There was one that we did focus on that I can't stand, and we'll talk about it. But I really enjoyed 2 of our main characters. I liked Brie a lot, and I liked Nick a lot.
Did you?
I did like Nick.
No.
Did you not? Are you
I liked Brie. I actually did like Brie quite a bit. Now, I gotta say, I had just read A Song of Wraiths and Ruin, and talk about a character. Oh my gosh, the main female lead in that character is so intense. And she is, okay, so she also is grieving. Hers is kind of a distant grief and also a new grief, but she's the kind of person that the second somebody is trying to have like a moment with her, not even romantic, just any kind of personal moment where she seems like maybe there's a chance she's about to open up, and then they're there for her, she will lash out and say terrible things to them. And you're like, girl, what is your problem? And she did it over and over and over again. But I actually kind of, I mean, I appreciated that the author wasn't afraid to make that character so aggressive, because I don't know, people in the world are aggressive and they get really defensive. And in this book, I felt like it was far more toned down. So I don't know if maybe I just had just read that one and I was like, oh, okay, well, this is like nowhere in comparison to that. I felt like her reactions to things when it came to her emotions and the grief that she was dealing with, those felt, that's what I was saying earlier about if this had been just kind of a YA contemporary exploring grief, those parts were done exceptionally well, I thought. But it's in North, right?
Yeah, University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. Yeah,
it's in the South.
Okay,
so it's North Carolina.
It's North Carolina.
It was South Carolina for some reason, so I obviously
right above us, but nope. North Carolina. This is the audiobook because I did both, and I will just say that the narrator gave every single person, besides there was like an English person, a super Southern accent. And I'm like, we do not all have a super thick.
No, we do not.
And I was offended, but that was just a side note.
I think that this narrator, I think that she did another book that I listened to recently. So I like the narrator, but I've not until this book heard her do a British accent. And in fantasy books you get a lot of people doing British accents, and some of them are just straight up British people, and some of them are just voice actors who do good British accents. Hers wasn't. I'm not trying to pick on the audiobook narrator is amazing. I could never do that job, but the Southern accents, I mean, I don't know, I've been to North Carolina once and I don't but it's definitely there. A lot of them had that accent, but I thought that she did the accents well, though, except for the British one. But it was still, I mean, They felt similar.
I have so many thoughts.
Exactly. But yeah, I mean, overall, she was a good narrator. That was just something I noticed. Oh, yeah.
Author.
What was your favorite and least favorite elements to the book without spoilers?
My favorite was probably the big reveal at the end. There was a reveal, and there were a couple twists. A couple of them I knew and guessed, and a couple of them I didn't. And I just felt like that climax was like a powerful, like, yes, you go, girl. I was like all here for like the melodramatics. Yeah. So I really I liked the grief in the book. I thought it was really well written, and just how she weaved in the social commentary through the text. I thought she just placed it really well, and it was just really well executed. Like, I found this really well written. So those were my favorite elements.
I'd go on that too with the social commentary, with how like she tied in like the history of the United States and institutions with like slavery and racism, and like tying that in with Bree finding out about her past, and just showing small like microaggressions that maybe people don't notice, like when that someone assumed that she was hired help because she was the only Black person in the room, or asking to touch her hair, or
they didn't even ask, right? Didn't they?
Yeah.
Just
And in the very beginning, I think it's the first chapter or second chapter, where they're like, how did you get into this program? Must have been, affirmative action, and it was like, I got here on merit because I got good grades. So I just thought those were, although frustrating to read, really woven well into the story. Like, it made sense. It wasn't just like she was adding it. And then also the secondary magic system, because I read about that in another book I read in January. So I really loved that part of it.
I have to say, on the hair comment, I've told my husband before, like, I can't believe people do that. Like, who does? Why? Does anyone just? And my husband was like, people do that? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, why? Like, why would you go up to a person and just start touching their hair? But I was like, yeah, it's because, people are stupid. I'm like, and I could maybe if you're like really close to somebody and they're a good friend of yours, and just like you're kind of, some friends are like touchy with each other anyway. Like, they'll like, I had a friend in high school, this is such a tangent, but she was like the mom of like our class. She would come up and just start like rubbing people's shoulders and be like, are you okay? And she was always talking about everybody, and she was so touchy that I'd always be like, oh my gosh, like every time, because I'm not a touchy person. So, but the other aspect too is when she would have a boyfriend, I would be like, oh please no.
Okay.
Because then it was like extra touchy. But anyway, she was a very nice person. But like, I could see someone like that in that being like different than just the fact that people are just like, wow, look, different than mine. I'm gonna watch it. Like, it's like, they're not a dog. You don't pet them like, oh wow, I'm just like, I can't stand it. So, but yeah, I felt like those were handled really well. And I think that my favorite parts were also that, it's funny, the second magic system, weirdly, I feel like we could have had a whole book based around that magic. Like, I almost hope that she writes, maybe she could even write a story that takes place in a different time period that follows characters and their use of that magic. That would be so, like, I feel like that would be a really, really powerful, not that this one wasn't, but that could be such a powerful book. And that could definitely be adult if she wanted to go there, because that magic system was very heavy.
So cool though.
And creative. It was creative, and also I like kind of really empowering in a sense. I don't know. I thought that part was really great, but the writing itself, I mean, even the very, very opening I thought was well done. And the way that it was describing, so this isn't a spoiler, the setup for the book, where we start with the characters that her mother has passed away. So that's where the grief aspect comes into it. And this is another thing to add into it, is the conversation about seeking help, and her dad in the book and his feelings about, like, when I was growing up, this wasn't really a thing. Nobody really talked to a therapist. You just kind of bottled it all up. And I thought that his looking out for his daughter was, I thought, really beautiful. And that's something you don't always see in YA books or adult books, right? For fantasy. Yeah. A lot of times fantasy are non-existent.
Exactly.
And, I think their relationship was one of my favorites in the book. And even though she sometimes got frustrated with her friend, because her friend kind of lets her dad know when things are going on, I'm like, and he would always be like, yeah, it's because she's a good friend. It's because she's a good friend. And I'm like, that's sweet, because like her friend is looking out for her, and her father is looking out for her, and they care. Like, they're not trying to be nosy, and you know what I'm saying? Like, they're not trying to pry. They're just trying to look out for her at a time when maybe she's not able to 100% look out for herself.
Yeah.
I thought that part was done really well. Yeah. I already kind of said it, but as far as least favorite, I just think that the way everything was presented, and the timeline of how quick everything was not my favorite.
Yeah.
But it was more of like this is such a stupid analogy, but when you're doing a puzzle, I'm outing myself as a old lady right now. And when you're doing a puzzle and like two pieces kind of go together, and you're like, are these the pieces that go together? And then you like keep trying, and you're like, I think so. I don't know. It feels like it's like there's a little resistance. That's how I felt about the way the book was. Like, it fit, but also it wasn't as seamless as I wanted. So dumb. I'm sorry.
I can see that. I'm envisioning the puzzle. I see.
That's so funny.
Yeah, but the timeline, now that you point that out, because for some reason I thought it was over several weeks, but then now that I think about it, it wasn't. Something I can't even remember what I was going to say. Or something that I didn't like was also the villains of the story. They just didn't feel like, they just felt like, wah. And there was really no like backstory or heavy or like really reason why they were the bad guys besides opposing the good guys. So I was just like,
I have so many thoughts on this.
Yeah. Let it out.
Try to keep it spoiler free.
Before, I feel bad in case. I'm glad you guys like the analogy. I don't, I hopefully we don't skip over anyone. I know there's usually a slight delay between when we say something and when it appears in the chat. So we'll give it a bit. But if there's any more non-spoiler things that anyone in the chat wants us to discuss, let me know, and then we can discuss those really quick. But otherwise, we might want to move into spoilers. We've been talking for half an hour. Oh my gosh.
Oh, it goes so fast.
I just looked at the live button. It doesn't help that for the first few minutes I was like, oh no, my phone. So I feel like it took us a little bit. But what I will say is that, I want to reiterate that I really would love to see what this author does in the future. And I'm not trying to be condescending and say like, because this one, it was a nice first try, but I don't mean it like that. This one just didn't quite hit. The emotional stuff was really good, but the other aspects of it were just not quite clicking for me. But man, can she write some really good emotional scenes, and she can address stigmas in society about certain things. She can weave them into the story really well. So I really am excited to see what else she does. Oh, okay. I'm glad. I'm really excited when we get to that.
Yeah.
But
this was her first book, right? I'm gonna
think so.
I can make sure, because I thought it was, and if so, like, I'm really impressed, because I thought this was a really strong debut.
Yeah, I think it is a debut. Yes,
yeah.
That good guys. Exactly. There was really no difference.
Yeah. I have thoughts on this.
Will you read the next one, Elle?
Yeah, it's a debut. Yeah, it was a really good debut. And
I know I said it earlier, but the way I felt about Girls of Paper and Fire, Same thing where I was like, I so appreciate what this author did. I will absolutely read more from them in the future, but I don't know that I want to keep going with this series. So yeah, but it was, oh man, like I'm trying to think of specific. I mean, there's always, do you mean like bad as in it was done over like too many times, or that it was right always at a convenient moment when she was about to find something out, or characters were about to have moments? Should we move into spoilers though?
I'm ready. Jesse's ready.
Let me put it up on the screen so that anybody that hops in later knows that we are.
I want to start with this.
I really want to know. I want to know your spoilery thoughts. Oh, okay. They both. Okay.
Okay. My first thing, I guess since JJ brought it up about the villains, and you brought it up too, Jess, about the villains. So I knew that Nick's dad was going to be bad. I knew Lord Davis was going to be bad. Like, I knew that from like the moment he was introduced. And I'm like still confused as to what his goal was, because he wasn't going to be awakened as the scion of Arthur. It was going to be his son. So it still wasn't like he was going to have this power himself. So he wasn't looking for it for himself. It was like he was looking for it for his son, but his son wasn't even like, he wasn't, you know, when that kind of thing happens, usually the father's really like manipulating his son and like super close with him, and it's almost like the father's talking through the son. I didn't feel that way between Nick and his dad's relationship. I didn't think it was a relationship where Nick was super manipulated by his dad and like had to impress his dad at every turn and relied on his dad. Like, he kind of seemed independent of his dad, especially like because in the beginning of the book you find out he gave up his like scion position. He didn't even want it, despite what his dad wanted for him. So I was just confused as to like, why are you doing this? Like, you're not getting the power. Your son is going to get the power, and he doesn't really care what you think of him. Like, why are you doing this?
Yeah,
I'm almost game there.
I think part of it is that we met Nick as a character when he was like, yeah, I'm not going to do this. So we didn't really get to know how much his dad was pressuring him to fulfill this role, because at the time it seemed like him and his dad weren't really talking that much, right? Or at the very least, he was like pretty set on like, yeah, I'm not doing this. And so when you're introduced to his dad is kind of like, wow, well, if this girl has got you back into it, then I approve, or whatever, right? Like, it was kind of that vibe. And he was playing nice to kind of push his son toward this thing. I think it's possible that he was, because, you know, Nick says early on, like, oh, my dad like is always pressuring me to do this. So maybe, I don't know if that is, I'm not trying to go against what you're saying, Jesse. It's just like, I think we don't see his father pushing him, and like we didn't see that at the beginning. Yeah. So then later, that's, I think, why it felt maybe a little like, really? Oh, that's interesting.
I think it didn't help that when we see all of the what are they called? The demons like coming through the gate at the end when it's like opened, and they're like fighting them all off, and they're like losing, like they're very much overwhelmed, and his dad is overwhelmed, and you're kind of like, so you didn't even have a plan for when you open the gate. You're just gonna be like, hope we can take them all.
I feel like the plan was, my son will get powers and then we'll be fine. I feel like that was his plan.
Yeah, I don't know. I just didn't buy it.
I still don't, like, along with the magic and all the different positions, I still don't get like yeah, there's a war coming, but of what like, I don't, what do they want? What are they fighting for? I'm just so confused. And I think that's a downside to this was in first person, right? Point of view, that it's limiting because you can't see like what was happening with Nick or his inner monologue or how he felt with his dad when we really only focus on Bree. So I felt like besides like Bree and, you know, I guess Nick and Selwyn, everyone else is kind of like, you don't get a lot of development with them because it's mostly focused on her, which is kind of a downside.
Yeah. And I did not like Selwyn. That was the character I was referencing earlier. I was just like,
I thought this was pretty funny. And Alan, for those that watch World Hoppers and know the leaning joke that Alan has, okay, I saw a negative review that said that this book literally had both the male love interests introduced with them leaning. And I'm like, wait, are you serious? And they had like the quote included, Sal was leaning against a tree and Nick was leaning against the building waiting for her to get out of her class. And I'm like, hey, I just thought of Alan being like, everybody's leaning. I don't know, Jess, if you've seen, we might go on a slight tangent here for a second. Alan's leaning rant.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Because for those that don't know.
No, it happens so often.
For those that don't know, our friend Alan from Library of Alexandria, he was talking about actually kind of relevant, the Grisha cast picture that had come out months and months ago, and how he was like, I saw that picture, everybody's leaning against the wall, and he was like going off about it, and we're like, dude,
everyone's wearing black.
Everyone wearing black when it was just a black and white photo that he saw. And I'm like, that doesn't count. But anyway, I thought that was really funny. With the I know. Funny. I thought that was pretty hilarious. But okay, so I didn't really like either male like love interest as a love interest. I feel like the progression of, I get if she's like, this person's hot. Like, you know, people have eyeballs. I get if you notice that somebody's attractive, right? But it was more that Nick was like instantly in love. I mean, really early on, he makes a joke about like, me and you forever. And you're like, forever? You guys like just met. You literally just met.
Like, yes, bro.
Yeah, exactly. And then the whole like cell thing kind of pushing it was very like the charming, kind of more clean, literally like he's blonde hair, blue eyed kind of look, and then the bad boy with like
the golden boy and a prince of darkness.
Yeah, and like literally he's part demon. Right? So it was, but you know, I almost liked weirdly how much she leaned into it. Like, I know that we all know the stereotype, and I'm gonna lean into it even harder than you would think. And I kind of didn't mind, but at the same time, it was again the progression of feelings. So weirdly, even though Sel was like aggressive, his aggression was because he thought she was a threat to somebody he was supposed to protect. So I'm like, okay, well, I kind of get that. But like, one, the aggression isn't sexy, right? I'm like, and it's not sexy to be like, oh, this guy was gonna kill me or threatening to anyway.
Every day.
But at least like I could see, because they didn't instantly fall in love or anything, right? Their relationship was more, because it really wasn't romantic in this book, right? Mm-hmm. So I could see throughout the story him being like end game, because their relationship didn't just burst into this like, now we're in love kind of relationship. Yeah. Nick was possessive, and I feel like just no, like literally every time that Sel was even around her, he's like, I'm gonna kill him. I'm like, dude. And when he knows that Sel can't fight back, so he punches him. I get that Sel put her in danger, right? But like, to use that against him, knowing like I could hurt you and there's nothing you could do about it. And Bree's kind of like, I don't know how comfortable I am that he just did that. And I'm like, that's not great. That's not great.
I mean, so I think what I liked about Nick was, just to defend Nick here, because my goodness, I'm just kidding. I think no, you loved it.
I hope you.
I really enjoyed it. Okay,
the emotions were really good.
Okay, what I find very often in any book with a romance developing in it is when the main character, usually if it's a girl character, if she's going through her own stuff, there's always some sort of miscommunication between the girl and the boy, right? Like the love interest. Yeah. It's like, why are you pushing me away? Like, oh, I'm not, I'm just going through my, it's like that whole miscommunication, like just let her go through. And I feel like Nick did a really good job of like letting her like go through it. Like he never like got upset if she like needed her own time. And like he was always very receptive to her coming back. Like, if she ran away and like was like, I quit, and like freaked out at the end, and then she like came back to the ball and he was like, I am so happy you're here. Like he was like not upset. He was like, thank you so much for being here. Like he like, I don't know, he just like let her have her like that she needed. He let her go through it, and then he was like, I'm happy you're back.
Before I miss this one, I just want to that was definitely mentioned at the end. The like, did we really even like each other, or was this just because of this situation?
The time.
What?
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, is that pulling them towards each other? But I don't know how I feel about that.
I mean, okay, so I actually I don't like fated lovers. I know some people love that trope. I hate that trope. Yeah. But I do like the, oh shoot, do we like each other because of something else going on? And then they have to kind of question their feelings, and it usually ends up making them stronger if they're gonna stay together, or they're like, it's a more natural way for characters to maybe not be together because they realize, like, they reflect and they're like, oh, maybe I didn't feel this way. I'm glad you brought that up. I didn't want to forget that. But oh my gosh, did you hear my dog? Did you hear She's hold on. There she is. Oh. She's just hanging out near us. So, and this I want to mention as well. That's kind of like every time that we needed to have a moment where Charlotte was kind of like, my dad needs me. And then there was,
and they're like, uh-oh, we're left alone.
Yeah. I kind of almost feel like the tension between her and Cell was because of the, like, hopefully nobody catches us aspect of every time they met.
Yeah. One thing with Cell that bothered me was we spent all this time, and obviously he doesn't like her because he thinks she's a demon or whatever and maybe gonna hurt Nick, like, over and over, like every time they encounter each other. And then once he gets the proof that she's not, then he's like, oh yeah, you totally couldn't be da-da-da, like, because she's like walking really loud or something, or you totally, I'm like, but you just spent all of this time berating her, like attacking her, but now you're like, oh yeah, I don't know how I couldn't see it. I'm like,
I don't know how I couldn't see it. You're so incapable and dumb.
Yeah.
It made no sense to me. It made no sense. I was so angry with him. Every time he was on the page, it was either like, I'm gonna kill you and you are the bad one. And you're like, why do you even think that? Like, because she can see the ether. Like, I get there was like reasons why he was suspicious of her, but to like go from 0 to 60, like, I'm gonna kill you. I was like, what? And then I couldn't stand the switch. It was an instant switch. It went from, I'm going to kill you to, you know what? I really, really like you. And I didn't buy it. I couldn't stand it. He was just the most stereotypical, I'm the bad boy, edgelord. Like, it was just the most.
Okay, I want to add two things. First off, he even did the giving her like pet names. What did he even call her? He would like call her things like silly girl or whatever. And I'm like, that's what I call my dog. Like, oh, you're so silly, like when I pet her belly. But the other thing though is, I'll tell you why I feel like the switch didn't bother me too much. So the initial aggression that we talked about before, I feel like made sense because he legit was like, how is nobody seeing it? This is so obvious. This person is just trying to infiltrate and get to him. And then I feel like he put her in danger to purposefully try to get because like they feed on, or they're like drawn, whatever, the high emotions draw them out or something. And then I feel like when he realized he messed up, he was like, oh, my bad. And then that's why he was like maybe more willing to be nice and talk to her and help her out. but it also wasn't necessarily okay. Nick at the beginning was super charming, right? The very first time they meet, and she's like, "You're kind of a creeper," and he's just like, "Oh, am I?" You know, like because he finds her schedule or whatever. And then as soon as something happens that involves their knight's order thing, then he's just like, "Who sent you? Why are you here?" So he had that really like aggressive. Do you remember that at the beginning when she's like waking up and he's like questioning her, and she's like, "I have to pretend like I kind of know what's going on so that he answers all my questions." Do you remember that at the beginning? He was really angry. And I feel like Cell was just angry for longer. And also he's the stereotypical bad boy.
His dialogue was so cringy to me.
This is pretty funny. It like literally
that's so funny.
That would be nice.
You know what?
Shakespeare
She can rule on her own. She can be like the coolest, baddest ruler, and then they can like serve her and also, you know, be happy together.
That'd be a nice twist.
Yeah. So
yes, I was like, wait, who's Evan? I had to go back because I was like,
that was one downside to this book is that I liked Felicity, and that was her name, right?
Was that the British one?
What?
Was that the British one?
I think. Was she British?
There were just so many of them. I can't remember.
British, but she was like really chill and really nice and like blunt and cool with her. And she was some of the side characters were nice, but also I didn't have any feelings about them. So
there's too many.
Yeah,
it's hard. It's hard. Anytime you have a large amount of side characters, it's very difficult to expand on them. So I'm not too bummed about it. I'm just like I didn't really have an emotional reaction when things happened to them.
I agree.
Characters I really loved her therapist though, Patricia. Was it Patricia? I really like that. Is obviously that we get that connection back to her mom and then the root magic. Was it like Mariah that she brought along? Like I wish they were even in the story more.
Yeah.
For the little bit of time they were there. But yeah, the root. That was William. Okay. He was
I liked him. The healer.
Yeah.
He would leave her like the little notes.
Yeah. And he explained a lot of stuff to her. That was when the info dumps came, which helped me, but he was really nice.
Yes.
But all the rest of the people, I couldn't remember who they were.
Yeah. The real magic to me felt very, I don't know if you guys have read any Octavia Butler. It felt almost like Octavia Butler-esque, like a magic system that would be in her books. It kind of reminded me of, because I'm reading the Pathmaster series, kind of reminds me of that. And it was so cool. I wanted more of it. That was where, when that magic system was introduced, I was like, oh, like I really like what she's doing, but I think she's doing too much in this one book. And I wish we had just focused on one or the other of these magic systems, because I prefer the root magic was really
cool.
The root magic was really cool.
Because in January, I read a middle grade called Root Magic, because it's like an African-American form of like, spirituality magic. And so I loved it. And so when this popped up, I was like, oh my God. So I was like really wanting her to like expound on that. And something that bothered me towards the end when Bree was like, okay, I'm going in, I quit, I'm going to say my goodbyes. I'm done with this order, these racist people. And then it all changes. And she's like, yes, I'm going to stay. And I was like, because then I was like, yes, she's setting it up that she's going to leave the Arthurian part behind and really focus on the root magic. But it doesn't seem that way. And I was reading someone's review and I kind of felt similar, because when she's like talking with Patricia and visiting like ancestors, and they're basically referring to the Arthurian magic as colonizer magic. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, so why would you continue with that and not make the root magic the focus? I don't know.
Isn't there I apologize because I might just have this mixed up, but they talk about how you're like incurring debt almost by having this, and it's been going on for how many? 1,500 years or something like that. And so, yeah, I would think it's like time to, maybe it will. I think that this too, I think it's going to be explored more. And so one thing, and I think you just have to kind of go with the fact that Bree is young, but that scene when Nick chooses her in that, event, and he's like, you have to say something. And she's like, I accept. And I'm like, oh man, that's like when somebody asks you to a school dance that you don't want to go to, like everybody's watching. So I felt like, man, dude, maybe don't do that. Like, I don't know. I almost wanted her to say no then, but then, all chaos happened after that. But there's this as well.
Oh yeah, she is a vassal now. Oh, that reminded me of another thing I wanted to bring up with the plot stuff that I had questions on. I don't know the answer to that, but can I ask a different question?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so one thing I wasn't super clear on was we have the pages, and the pages are all battling for a spot to become the what are they called? When they're the scion people.
Like a squire?
Thank you, the squires. They're all battling to be the squires or whatever. So we have that whole school setting, the training sequences, which I didn't love. I didn't think we needed that. And that's why, like, the plot itself, why, if the pages know about this Legendborn world, why wouldn't they just be a part of the army no matter what? Like, even if they don't necessarily become a squire, like, why kick them out entirely if you have this Camlin war coming that you need backup? Like, you need all the people you can get, right? Like, this is going to be like a huge demon war. And they already know about the secrets of this world that's hidden from the Onceborn. Why wouldn't you just use them in your army? And they don't necessarily have to be squires. And I didn't love that, like, that's how they choose the squires. Like, they battle it out, and like, why can't we just like have pages, have armies, and then the scions just naturally choose who their squires? Why do they have to like battle for? I don't know. That stuff, like, if that had been removed from the story, I don't think we would have lost anything.
Yeah.
I think we would have been able to focus on more of the cool stuff.
She wins anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
it was just adding in, because I mean, I usually like tournaments or games and something, but it was just another thing where it was like another element.
Yeah.
Where, like you said, like if you took it out, we wouldn't have missed anything. So why?
Yeah.
I feel like it was just an excuse to have her get back at that one D-bag guy.
Yeah.
Her line toward him, though, when she's like, "Are you questioning our ruler? Because that says more about you." Like that part, I was like, "That was a good comeback." I did, but she already got him. Like she got him with her words, and so girl is not capable at fighting. It's like we didn't need to. I don't know. I don't know that I needed that as well. I know they're the cutest. They were expressing here the same thing that you were talking about with the root magic.
Yes, I was like, yes, that's too confusing anyway. Let's move to the root work. But
yeah,
I know, Jesse, you expressed your love for the twist at the end. I don't know how I feel about any of you trust the other girl that helped Patricia, because I still don't.
I think that's interesting.
Mariah? Oh, you don't trust Mariah?
I think I think
she came up kind of out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Patricia was just like, here's another person. So
now I'm like, do I trust her?
I know. Yeah, that could be a really interesting twist later.
Also, when she goes like basically.
What's her name, Mariah? I feel like just in case I should.
I know. I thought it was that
I was back in time.
Patricia. Maria? Is that it? Maria? Not Mariah? I really don't remember.
Wrote this down.
Now I'm curious though, Jess, what you were going to say about the ending.
I'll look up in here and then you guys.
Okay.
I just don't know. Like I felt like it was coming right when they were saying like it wasn't happening with Nick, or basically when that little demon thing was like, you have to tell Nick. And then I was like, what's going on here? And he's just, I don't know. It's just weird. I don't know how I feel, but I didn't love it.
Okay.
I just need someone else. I don't know. Because again, it makes that obviously we're continuing the Arthurian part. So I'm like, okay, she's King Arthur. And then the whole story with like, that makes sense going back into slavery and how the lines would intertwine and stuff. But I was just like, okay.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting just how she was a combination of everything. Like she's kind of like the trifecta of all these different types of magic, and she's like the bridge herself between all these different types of magic. And I just thought like her taking that mantle for herself, like it was just like but I don't know. I would be curious, like, what other people's thoughts on that twist.
I want to say it is Mariah. And also on almost page 300, it says, thank God for Saturdays. And I think that means we're about a week in. Like, not even a week, because I think the events at the beginning started either Saturday or Sunday night. So, yeah, it's...
Oh, wow.
It's at around 300 pages. We have reached about a week of the book. I wanted to add that. Really.
Wow.
Yes. So I don't know, maybe I missed it, but you know when like she travels basically to the past, she's going through the memories.
Yeah.
Does time, like the time she's in, does that freeze? Because towards the end, amidst this huge battle, she's like going back to see the story of like her ancestors. So I'm like, in real time, is time frozen, or is she just standing there like?
Because Patricia said when Bree got kind of caught, because Patricia was showing her, and then Patricia's ancestor like kept her and showed her more, and then Patricia was like, "Oh, you weren't coming too." So yeah, I definitely think maybe it doesn't pass the same way, but yeah, that means that in that scene she would have just been kind of like.
Yeah, there are demons flying around, and you're just like, hold on.
I didn't even think about that. That's so funny. I didn't even notice that, but that's true.
Think about that as it happens. Yeah, maybe sometimes. I don't know. Maybe it depends on what they're showing you and who's showing you what. I don't know. I wanted to mention. Yeah, this is how I felt too. Poppy War. But literally this is how I feel about the Poppy War. Sorry, just both of you.
Okay. I understand.
Did I miss? You didn't? Okay, this is not the conversation. I'll just have to talk to you.
Yeah.
This is another whole topic. Whole live show.
Arthur straight up possessing her. Yeah. I love her was it her grandmother, her great grandmother in?
Yes.
I love that.
Yes, like, don't use the Lord's name in vain. And I did like that part. But also I'm kind of like, are they with you all the time? Like, yeah. Because that makes
is she permanently in there? Like, or does she have to like go through a ceremony to get her out? I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of like the grandma being in her.
She was like, I gotta put her in a room. Be quiet, grandma.
Yeah, I kind of like it.
Nick and I are making out, Grandma. Please leave. So,
yeah. Time, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I know. No. I feel like I feel like it deserves praise and hype for sure. But I kind of hate Rin, so I'm sorry.
Rin is my girl. Okay.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Not freeform.
Not freeform. Not freeform.
What have they done?
Didn't they do the new Shadow Hunters show?
I don't know. Their shows just seem very basic, but Netflix, I mean, every other day, I swear something's getting adapted. So I wouldn't be surprised at this. I just hope it's adapted by somebody with a lot of money, like HBO or Netflix or
Yes.
a movie.
Yes. Like it should get the Shadow and Bone treatment. High budget.
I don't want to say that preemptively.
I know, right? Oh my god.
When I saw the Witcher trailer, side tangent here. When I saw the Witcher trailer, I was like, "Oh my gosh, I can't wait! This is gonna be amazing!" And then I was like, "Why are they ruining this?" And
I watched it.
I mean, it was fine. I just was that annoying person that was like, "It's different, pal." And so I'm hoping Grisha is amazing. Okay, yeah, they said they did do Shadowhunters.
Yeah. I remember seeing commercials for it, and it was just like, it's just like, I think they did an okay job. There's that part she mentions the grandma's.
Night, Grandma.
I love Grandma being in. I think that's so funny. But yeah, the freeform shows just look kind of lower budget, but it's fine.
My grandma would not know what was happening if she was. My grandma's very sweet, but she's also old, and she kind of says the same like stories over and over again. So I feel like I'd be like, "Grandma, you just told me this," Or my grandma has this like desire. I've told Jesse about this before. My grandma always feels the need to explain to me like sexual things. So like implications. So we would be watching a movie and she'd be like, "Oh," she's from Cuba. So she'd be like, "Oh, what's happening. He's getting excited now." And I'm like, "Yeah, I know, Grandma. I know what's happening." She's like, "Oh, because of the," and I'm like, "Yes, I do know. I understand." So I feel like, I don't know, anytime I was hanging with Nick or something, my grandma would be like, "Oh, he's so handsome." Plus my grandma like has a weird okay. I don't know what it is, but she just thinks like blue eyes are the most beautiful thing ever. I don't know. Every time a Cuban baby in our family is born, my grandma's always like, "Oh, they have blue eyes," which they don't. Newborns just have like sometimes different colored eyes, right? And she's like, "Oh, they have blue eyes." And then if she saw Nick, she'd be like, "Oh, he's so handsome." And I'd be like, "Grandma, stop. Grandma, stop."
Oh, sweet, please.
Now I need this in your next book, Elle. I need the grandma mentor figure based on your real life grandma giving you the.
See, my grandma would be the one saying Jesus, and I'd be correcting her because the part where she's like, "Don't say the Lord's name in vain," and like has Bree smack herself or whatever. But
yeah.
my grandma with her accent, she'd be like, "Oh, Jesus," and I'd be like, "Grandma, you shouldn't say that." She's like, "I say Jesus. I say Jesus, not Jesus." And I'm like, "Okay, Grandma." So this is really relevant to legend. We're just talking about grandmas being in your body, like
probably normal.
So how do you think, kind of bringing this back in, how do you think the whole Arthur thing is going to go down? What are your predictions?
Oh, God.
Nothing? Crickets?
I do feel like if I kind of want to go and read the original like King Arthur legend now, because I do feel like she like the whole thing with Lancelot betraying Arthur. I mean, does that mean Nick's going to be the bad one? And Nick did kind of freak out at the end when he realized, like, basically his whole life he's been told that this is who he is, and to find that out in such a shocking way was like, oh my God, like he like freaked out. So maybe he will end up being bad. I like my little Nick, but I mean, maybe he'll be bad, and like I wouldn't be upset. And end up betraying her. And I do think she's going to use a lot more of the root magic, and we're going to get a lot more exploration of that in the sequel. Yeah. At least I hope, because that was really cool. So
I know some things about the King Arthur legend. I don't know what the absolute original is. It's funny because this whole month I've been reading the book Lancelot, which is about so it's kind of funny that I'm reading another one. I didn't do that on purpose, but there's so many different ones at this point that it's almost just like the sword and the names So, what was your? Do you have any predictions, Jess?
So so not knowing, I feel like my confusion from, I don't know what what they're fighting for, so I don't know that, but I do agree that I think the root magic will come into play more with her using, Arthur using her, and then her using her power of her ancestors and root magic to fight whatever Morgaine and crew for whatever they're fighting for. And so I think those will definitely come into play, but I don't know much more than that. Obviously there'll probably be some more with that love interest and whatever there. But I also, when you said that you think Cell probably would be in game, is also probably true because they have that shared history that their mothers were friends. I thought that was really interesting, since his mom was supposedly locked up and supposed to be basically turning crazy because she's a demon, but she seems really lucid, and then she gets that memory back that she was there at the hospital. So that's really, because she's still alive, so I feel like she's gonna show up with something. So
she's gonna want some revenge.
Yeah, and then at the end, Nick's kidnapped, so it's gonna start out there, and so it'll be interesting to see if she writes Nick to turn into the bad guy, or if he does stay a good guy but falls into a role of just Lancelot to his King Arthur. I don't know, or his Queen Arthur. I don't know.
To this, I mean, we mentioned a little bit earlier with Cell, but
yeah,
I mean, it was
William. There were a lot of LGBT plus characters in this, and I thought it was really well done because it was just kind of organically in there.
Yeah,
it was just like this is who they are, and that. I thought it was really well done. Yeah.
Instead of asking, Alice, who's lucky, or are you gonna start dating guys, the normal assumption. So there was Alice and then William. I thought it was really because he talked about getting engaged or moving in with a fiance, and it's who's the lucky person instead of just saying who's the lucky girl. Selwyn, who else were there? Yeah, but they were just it wasn't their whole personality. It was just
there were two girls too.
Tor and Felicity,
who were bonded together.
Yeah, they were the bonded pair.
Yeah,
and they were together, which it was just all very just organically in there, and I loved it. I thought there was a ton of representation.
Yeah, that's I mean, this is gonna sound, I don't know. I almost feel like when it is naturally incorporated, you almost don't even think to talk about it because you're almost the same way you wouldn't be so let's talk about how these people were straight in this book. When it's done in a way that's organic, it's organic. It's when it's really in your face, then it's look, my characters, there's one of them is LGBTQ plus, and you're oh. There was a book I read. It wasn't so much that, it was more of the fact that the author, I think, was trying I don't want to say what the book was because I don't want to bash this book or anything, but the white characters in the book would think of other characters as white when they would see them. They'd be so these two white boys. And I'm white people don't see other white people and think so those white guys over there, when you're in a diner and everybody's white. And I'm just that's not that feature doesn't distinguish them though. And it all the time. And it went to their point of view, and it was the white girl walked in and I'm you're all white. I thought that the girl, maybe I was oh, okay. So she's not white. And so she's acknowledging but everybody was white. And I'm I never look at my friends well, of course not my friends, but I never walk into a shop and be so yeah, that white guy, which white guy? It's a diner filled with white people. So I think sometimes it can almost be awkward when it's too I know that's not the same thing, but when it stands out, then I feel it's more of a thing. But when it's natural, it's it's just people. That's just how people are. There's people, yeah. So, let me see.
Yeah. Well, Lord Davis is still alive, right? So he's gonna be real upset because his stupid plan that was not well thought out at all keep crashing down. Couldn't stand him.
And there's this too, the fact that people die.
Yeah, the fact that they all die young was really interesting. That's like a part of the cost of using the magic.
And then there's her family where they're like, "All you gonna die early. That's just your thing." Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
Professional. Okay. Oh, and also, I'm not attracted to you anyway.
Yes. Yeah, I liked that it was like because I do get frustrated in stories. There's a part of Rhythm of War where a character is talking to another character who is trying to help people through essentially the fantastical medical field. And this other person's like, "Oh, well, basically now you have all these opportunities to meet women." And he's like, "No, that kind of goes against my ethics." And I'm like, "That's right, it does."
Yeah.
But yeah. So anyway, I'm glad. I agree that I like that he was like, "Hey, man, like I'm a medical student."
Yeah.
So that's literally, we see bodies and those kinds of things all the time.
William's great.
Yeah.
They all, they even her friend called her Maddie, right? Because her last name with Matt was used.
Oh, the other thing that I just thought of was the idea behind once you like destroy the Arthur scion, like it what am I trying to say here? It like
destroys the whole line.
The lines, like it like what am I trying to say? It like cuts off the magic for the rest of time. There's like no more Legendborn after that. So that's going to be really interesting because now that Bree is the scion of Arthur, like, is she going to purposely try to like it's not all of her, like she has her ancestors in her as well. So is she going to like try to like take out the part of the Arthur that's in her and like destroy that so there's like no more Legendborn or something? Like, I don't know. That'll be interesting. She was making a point to say like once the sign of Arthur's dead, no more. It was like kind of brought up a couple times where you're like, I think this is gonna play a big role. Pepper live stream. There's my dog right there. My dog is a cat. He like will he sits on the corner.
Oh my god!
There he is. I'm focused.
Just perched.
Anyways.
So just following up on that, the only thing is I'm straight. Yeah. So even though I thought it was organic, I can't speak to if it was done well as far as how I think that they were shown as just people. Yeah. But that's the only reason, like, I agree that it's worth acknowledging that we thought it was done well, but I also don't want to try and speak like, I don't know. I think it would be weird to be like, yeah, it was great, because I don't know how people who actually that is they experience that, if they would feel the same. But that's the only reason I wasn't instantly like, let's talk about this, all of us who are married to men. So yeah, Jesse, your dog is just
look.
He's far away.
But I always joke that in reading sprints, when we start talking about our dogs, that might mean that we stop talking about the book. We'll kind of to.
Oh, you're probably right. You're probably right. I'm just spitballing. I don't know what I'm talking about.
With the root, when they said, so is it only if she becomes a mother that she will die young, or they just die young in general?
I thought that they were always going to have a daughter.
Yeah, I think it's once she has a daughter, then once it awakens, once that magic awakens in the daughter, then they have to pass, which is so interesting.
One daughter at a time.
Such a cool magic system. So sad, like such a tragic magic system.
Yeah.
But also like just really, I love that magic. I hope we get more of it.
What are you doing, sir?
Yeah. Well, I'll be. Shoot, there's an echo. Oh man, is it gone?
I haven't heard it.
Okay. Yeah, I was wondering about. Did they just not ever have sons?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess not.
I would have to double check that wording in that part.
Yeah.
For real. Like you will literally die. That's true.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be super curious if you end up picking up the sequel. Your thoughts
I'll
on
tell you how
that?
it is.
Yeah,
because I do want to continue on. I'm definitely I enjoyed this quite a lot, so I'm excited. But yeah.
Well, do you guys have any recommendations for books that you think if people liked this one that they would like?
Honestly, Octavia Butler, because the magic system just seemed just so similar. So like Wild Seed by Octavia Butler and Mind of My Mind. I think Liv said Kindred, also by Octavia Butler, reminded her of this book. So I would say Octavia Butler for sure.
I can't think of a book. Although, if you're open to reading middle grade and you like the root magic, you should read Root Magic by Eden Royce. It's a historical middle grade, but it was really good. And it's set in South Carolina, and I'm from South Carolina, so you should read it.
I'm looking up for if there's any news on the sequel. It looks like it's supposed to come out 2021. It says published 2021 by Simon Pulse, but it doesn't have a title. It just says Legendborn 2, and there's no cover or anything. So
I know she's mentioned on Twitter, like I'm working on it, so I wonder if it'll be later this year. Although she's still working on it, I don't know.
We can end on read Once and Future King. I've heard that's good. It's definitely an older fantasy story, so it's not going to be as modern, but it's gonna feel very different. I haven't read that one yet though. So yeah, we'll end on the
y'all know what I am.
You what'd you say?
I'd pick Nick.
Yes.
I mean I kind of liked the Nick and Cell are off in the sunset, but
oh yeah, true. That's better.
I mean, not because he's the bad boy or anything, but because I prefer people get to know each other. Even if it starts out with them hating, and wanting to kill each other. I gotta say, I might be Team Cell. I don't like the possessiveness that Nick showed. I don't like his constant obsession. Even if it's possibly rooted in magic. Well, he knows
he was gonna kill her.
He knows. That's because he thought she was a threat. He knows, but he knows he needs therapy. He even says,
That's
maybe he
Nick
for himself.
I do think Nick has potential to become bad because of his dad, and Cell has potential to become good because of his mom, like we talked about. So I think I'm going to be disappointed, but it's fine. It's fine.
We'll see what happens. I said earlier, okay, I was thinking this.
Yes.
I didn't want to say it.
I know. I'm so scared.
No.
What's going to happen?
I refuse.
See, okay, there you go. Bree and Alice, and then
there you go.
So
I like that.
That's true. They are like foster brothers.
Yeah.
But that didn't change. Cell had feelings, so but at the beginning I was like, I don't know if I would read the sequel. I don't know if I really want to read the sequel. But now I'm like, well, freaking this was.
See, now you watch it.
And what's funny is earlier in this, somebody was like, why did I even like this book? And now I'm kind of like, do I like this book more than I thought? There were so many elements that were so cool, and there were elements that were so well done. It was just like my really, really amazing puzzle comparison, like so like I'm gonna stand by that like the way it fit together was not, it didn't like just glide in, nicely. So
it did not flow seamlessly, but hopefully she can focus in since she's gotten through Bree getting in to the whole thing, so there shouldn't be trials or anything, so she can focus on the two magics and whatever big battle. And yeah.
So, oh no.
now I can't unsee it either. I'm like freaking out. That's exactly what's gonna happen, and I'm gonna be so mad.
No. I think all of you. No.
I think we'll have to maybe read the sequel and come back to this, and do this again. And also, I think we need to end it on a doggy note. So we'll take everybody over to
everyone say goodbye.
There's my dog.
there.
In there.
Jesse, your dog was like, what do you want?
I know, my dogs are like, just let us sleep.
She's always sleeping. I see your tail wagging. I'll move the microphone. You can come over. Come here. Oh, there. She's got to stretch.
Very important.
Up. Come on. Come on, just look up.
She's so cute.
I was busy napping.
This is what everybody's here for. Everyone Legendborn. We're just our dogs. Her little tail, because it curls when it wags, it's like a little pivot.
It's so cute.
Dinner bear. Do you want snacky? Yes. Okay. Well, we will end it. Thanks everybody for chatting with us and looking at our dogs. And I'm glad so many people really love the book. And thanks for joining.
Yay.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.